I want it now and I ain't never gon' back down. I want it now and I ain't never gon' back down. I want it now and I ain't never gon' back down. I want it now and I ain't never gon' back down. I am no regular citizen. Do you understand what you witnessing? You cannot tell what the difference is. I want it all and I'm winning it. I do not care about opinions. Time to make a few decisions so I can take a position. I'ma go get it, I'm punching and kicking. I keep on moving, they off of me. Just do it and stop without talking, G. I'm not expressing no modesty. I can't see nobody stopping me. If there's a problem, I gotta solve it. Straight to the top, I can't see myself falling. I gotta grab it, there's no time for stalling. Number one stunner, don't have other options. Now I'm fired up. I'm sorry, brother, your time's up. I see the top and I climb up. I came from the ashes, I rise up. Rise up, rise up. I want it now, I gotta rise up. Rise up. I want it now, I gotta rise up. Rise up. I want it now, I gotta rise up. Rise up. I want it now, I want it now, and I ain't never gon' back down. I want it now, and I ain't never gon' back down. I gotta go for the gold. I need to switch up the mode. I'm gonna win on my own. I'm in a whole nother zone. I reached the pinnacle. I don't have time, this is critical. It's time to finish you. I don't care who I just did it to. I gotta go for the gold. I need to switch up the mode. I'm gonna win on my own. I'm in a whole nother zone. I reached the pinnacle. I don't have time, this is critical. It's time to finish you. I don't care who I just did it to. I want it now, I gotta rise up, rise up. I want it now, I gotta rise up, rise up. I want it now, I gotta rise up, rise up. I want it now, I gotta rise up, rise up. I want it now, I gotta rise up, rise up. I want it now, I gotta rise up, rise up. I want it now, I gotta rise up, rise up. I want it now, I gotta. I want it now and I ain't never gon' back down. I want it now and I ain't never gon' back down. I want it now and I ain't never gon' back down. I want it now and I ain't never gon' back down. Said I'm fired up. I'm sorry your time's up. I see the top and I climb up. Came from the ashes, I rise up. Rise up, rise up. I want it now, I gotta rise up.
Live tonight from iRacing's virtual Las Vegas Motor Speedway, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to race number 3 of the 2024 Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series. Well, gone are the days of the super speedways, both Daytona and Atlanta behind us. And as some may say, now the real season begins as we are back in the entertainment capital of the world for race number 3 of 30. Well, as always, happy that you're spending your Monday night with us here on RaceSpotTV. Our producer downstairs is Joshua Lee, and alongside Terry Radford, my name is Evan Pasoko. And just get it out of the way now, Terry. Just lay it all out there, roll the dice, play your cards right, whatever you want. You'll hear it all tonight. But the overarching story, first intermediate of the year, these tracks have been notable in these next-gen cars, and it'll be fun to see if we see some new names based on what we saw in the first 2 weeks. Is this really going to be a turning point? We'll find out tonight after 134 laps.
I thought you were just quoting Kenny Rogers from The Gambler, but also, you know, I was alluding to, you said who was downstairs, our producer, like how short he really is. I met the guy in person. He's like 2 foot tall. He's like a big time Rush song. Very quick to forget and kind of hard to notice. But no, this is going to be fun. This is going to be fun. Yeah, I tried. It's going to be interesting. Minazzi Major getting the win last week. Can he catapult this momentum into Las Vegas? 1.5 miles. kind of seen it all thus far, and I get a B- for effort from him. It's fine, just like his height. But can we see a Brandon Gass come up here and hold up on it? Can Andrew Freenage come back with a new front style for the Fords? It's going to be fun. Can't wait to talk about some fuel mileage, though.
Yeah, we take a look at the schedule and where this falls on this campaign. Of course, there's going to be a whole lot of different coming up next, right? First couple of short tracks in the next few weeks with the Bristol and then Richmond. But these intermediate racetracks, Texas, you got Charlotte. You've got them later on this year as well, mainly in the playoffs. On the NASCAR Cup Series side of things, make up, I would say, Terry, a higher percentage of the season than they do here in this RealSimRacing Cup Series, but they are still an integral part of that championship and is something to take note of because it's, again, a different challenge. Will Minotzi Major be able to bounce back and, 1 week removed from his first career win? Can he be competitive and stay in the conversation? Of course, the big story with those wins for both Minotzi and our defending champion is that those wins put them at the top of the playoff standings. Now, the win does not necessarily 100% lock them in, but it is not likely that it will get more than 16 different race winners in the 20 regular season races this year. So for all intents and purposes, they're in the show. Now, I wouldn't pay a ton of attention to the red line quite yet. It's still pretty early, but I'd look to the names below it just for slow starts, right? Cody Harris, Daniel Eberhardt, Jaron Weinmaster, I think all names that we can assume would expect themselves to be above that cut line when it gets down to it. Bad start to the season's not going to end your hopes, but it does make things more difficult. Nobody wants to start out from behind.
Well, you know what happens when you assume, right? And you assume coming in here that we're going to see a clean race. This has been statistically one of the highest caution-producing racetracks in the RSR calendar. You get out of the Daytona side, you actually get to a track where you're starting to learn the iRacing updates on the mile and a half. You're trying to make moves to try to dig yourself out of that hole you alluded to from the super speedway. And we're also used to this being race number 2. It's not anymore. It's race number 3, thanks to the Atlanta swing where we stay on the East Coast for 2 races before we hit the West Coast swing. You take a look there, 1.5 miles, banking at 20 degrees in the turns and then 9 degrees in the tri-oval. It's weird to think that this was open in 1971, and they didn't race here until, 93 or 94 before they got one. So you take a look at Matt Danson, who's going to touch the track for the first time for his qualifying, currently sitting 30th on the board out of the 29 that has qualified. Still waiting on 2 more, though.
Yeah, there's just under 60 seconds left. Sheen currently top of the board. It is a closed qualifying session. 2 laps, 5 minutes of single car runs, and it is weird to refer to this racetrack as my former hometown track, but LVMS was constructed originally back in 1996, held its first major event in September of that year. It was an IndyCar race won by Richie Hearn. The first NASCAR race happened 2 months later, and it got its first Cup date in 1998. But of course, the track that we all know was changed significantly back in 2006. They upped the banking from 12 degrees to 20, and it's the progressively banked corners that make this racetrack one of the more fun ones. Again, biased opinion, I will admit to that.
You're pretty biased.
It's a fun joint. It's a good place to go to. NAS Trucks, NASFinity, NAS Cup, whatever you want to call it, even tonight here for RSR Cup. And with that, the qualifying session draws to a close. So let's go trackside and take a look at your starting grid tonight in the Mojave. Pole position will belong indeed to Liam Sheen. He holds on a 29.769, fast enough to best them all. And Brandon Gass is good. He's enough for P2, and will start from the outside of row number 1. Thomas George will start from a 3rd tonight, and Joseph Tice alongside at a 4th. They will make up row number 2 with the Cody Harris's 28 and Kyle Trudeau's 7 machine. They round out your top 6.
Have we been saying Kyle Trudell the whole time and we were wrong? That's wild. Dominic Kyle will start on 7th with Bradley Burke in 8th. Maverick Davis with a good qualifying run inside the top 10 in 9th with Sam Nieto, who was fastest in practice, mind you, will roll out on your top 10 position. Braden Whitaker back there in 11th, and Nick Mara rounds out your top 12.
Looking at number 13 tonight, therefore, goes to Michael Araya. He'll be joined by Ross Cato to the outside of row number 7. Andrew Friedrich with some work to do will start from 15th position to Chris Treppa alongside in 16th. At Agnell Phillip, Daytona winner, defending champ midfield in 17th. He's ahead of Grant Davis, though, on the outside of row 9.
Yeah, back there with Cam Patterson in 19th. Austin Coop to the outside. Jaron Weinmaster, driver you talked about, could be a shoo-in to get into the top 16 at points to be 21st. Last week's winner finally getting the win under his belt in 22nd with Minazzi Major. Steve Sawa in 23rd and Eric Papineau in 24th.
Tom Moreno is going to put the Battle Beaver Racing 42 car on the grid in 25th. It'll be next to RaceSpot's own Dylan Coyle. We'll check in with him tonight. He starts in 26th. Garrett Pittman will start from 27th. Mike Maddox in 28th. With DeAndre Kane and Matt Dansett rounding out your top 30. Those are the final cars to put down times in qualifying. So based on provisionals, James Ross gets 31. Larson gets 32. And that is look top to bottom at your RSR starting grid, right on the money as they start to roll. We take a look at these track conditions. It's a pretty average late February, early March type day in the sim here in Vegas. 78 degrees Fahrenheit. Track temp going to be a little bit warmer than that. Partly cloudy conditions. Wind is low. That's better. I think it was gusting in the 30s this past weekend. But again, tonight's race, we will go racing for 134 laps. It's going to be half the distance compared to what we saw over the weekend with our NASCAR Cup counterparts. And as always, Terry, fixed setups, no fast repairs, 4 tire sets, and 100% fuel capacity. Let's not touch on that yellow highlight until later if we need to. How about that?
Well, we'll just try not to preemptively say that it could happen, but there is a good chance at the overtimes. Statistically speaking, I'll pull the Larry Mack cap on for a second. Our cautions are normally early on in this race, but with this being race 3, I think we might have kind of calmed it down just a little bit. Atlanta had its deal. Like we understand, we got through that aspect of it. Good to see Thomas George and Joseph Tice there in 3rd and 4th. I'm biased to the Valvoline brand.
It's a good look at the machine, and he's got a good view for the start of this one. He's lined up on the outside of row number 2. Pace car dives off it in, though. The field is in the hands of the 78 Toyota of Liam Sheen. Let's go racing in Vegas. They race back to the stripe for the end of lap number 1. Advantage Sheen on the outside. Almost no separation gained amongst your top 15. Sheen side by side with George. The advantage to the outside down the Nellis straightaway.
You saw gas there in the 20, kind of got chopped off a little bit by the 6 of Thomas George. Though you see a little bit of 3 wide there, almost went wrong. I believe that's how in that 07 kind of got pinballed around a little bit. Or was that Harris that tried to take the 3 wide move, just couldn't make it stick? We hadn't talked about aerodynamics a ton, Evan, based off of the fact Daytona and Atlanta and the super speedway form was there. But these cars now, with the 2-mile-an-hour winds and the differing of how they're going to get off the corner, handling will be the biggest factor in this one. Are you going to push the tires too soon? Or are you kind of got to be reserved a little bit? As I think we see a little bit of differing strategies. Thomas George leads the first laps for himself of the night.
George going to go outside around Sheen. Sheen not done yet. Looking back underneath. Not going to be able to get there. And part of me always wishes that Vegas would get the updated art treatment like some of the other tracks on the service. But this is my LVMS. Back from my first Cup race here in 2013 with about 150 35,000 other fans there. A little bit of a nostalgia trip with how this racetrack looks. There's a look off the back end of the 6 car of Thomas George. You can see Sheen lined up, Gas, Howe, and Tice, your drivers inside of the top 5. Tice side by side right now with the 07 of Howe. Howe slipping to back top side. That's where the first battle is. But again, it may not be Daytona. It may not be Atlanta. But modern day, next gen 1.5 mile racing does not lend itself to much more space than what is necessary. And they are still all over top of each other early in this one. Cool conditions, cool track means they may be able to be even more aggressive than if they were slipping and sliding around a little bit more. We'll see if that changes at all over the course of the race. Keep an eye on the weather.
Yeah, the weather can kind of change this. If the sun starts to peak out a little bit and put some extra heat into this racetrack, you'll see it kind of elevate how these drivers handle going into the corners. Off the exit of 2 here is going to be a big hot spot for a lot of them to set up their passes. You saw it there with Liam Sheen. Got the run, couldn't necessarily get to the inside of Thomas George, but the moment he got down the back straightaway, he set himself up for 3 and 4 the right way. You see Dominic Howe up there in 3rd. He's going to get the toe. Outside's looking strong at the moment. Can they keep that momentum and keep those next-gen cars kind of wound up there to kind of control this race just a little bit as we're 2 by 2? It looks like we were in Atlanta again this week, but no, we're at Vegas.
Only 1 car odd man out down the back, 3 wide. I think that was the 12 of Cato, but again, they all get back to 2 by 2 for the most part. And last time by, it was the top 15 cars separated by a second or less. This time, it's the top 12, maybe getting a little bit of separation, but I don't really think that's cars pulling away. I think that's just a bit of 2 wide turned into some single file, but look at that shot as they rip off a turn 2. I mean, they are not spreading out by much at all. Everybody aggressive to an extent early. This race last year had 6 yellow flags. Your race winner was Agnew Phillip, who led the most laps en route to that win. And there is yellow flag number 1. Couple of cars around in turn number 4. Mike Maddox, maybe one of them. He was slow, but I think it may have happened even further up the road from him. And we will slow things down for the first time tonight after something happened, Terry, involving Andrew Freenach. He was quick to queue up on the radio and apologize. His car looked fine, though. Wonder if there was some sort of an accordion effect behind something involving the 88.
Yeah, we'll put the replay up here in just a second and kind of see where all of this stemmed from. And Evan, I know I'll be biased when I say this, and all started when we went on board with Cody Harris. He got loose in the corner, and that just checked up this field, and they went around, and doesn't look like a ton of damage for a lot of people. I mean, I don't think anybody hit the wall. Just a lazy spin throughout the field, and no harm, no foul. But once again, I think it all stemmed from us going on board with the Ohio State fan, Cody Harris.
And brings out the first yellow. Again, Freenach was convinced that there's he's against the chuckle. It started off with Freenach. He was convinced it was him, but I think it was just 2 different checkups. And you saw Morano go for the spin there. It's pretty, harmless, I would say, for the 42. 77 gets a bit of a touch as well. So it is Morano who ends up going around. So that'll be the first yellow of the night. He had some assistance from behind, courtesy of the 77 and the 30 car. And what we said, fuel saving was going to be a topic of conversation tonight. A couple of cars towards the rear will come down for service, but not a ton of the race leaders.
This caution helped one person and one person only, and that was Matt Danson. Somehow he was a lap down. Not sure if he gridded on time and had a 1-lap hold in the pits, but he got his lap back there. Will put him 32nd. We'll see if we'll keep an eye on the back of the field. If the 27 can storm his way up through it, we know he's fast. We know he's very competitive in any series that he races in. But for the drivers who came down pit lane, yeah, we're only 9 laps, now 10 laps in, but 8 of them under the green flag conditions. This gives them a little bit of extra help when it comes to if this turns into what it was last season with 6 caution flags. They're not burning the fuel under that caution. They're able to kind of coast it just a little bit, put the thing in neutral, let it ride, do what it wants to do. tire strategy wise, none of them took tires as far as I can see. Manazzi Major, Maverick Davis is on pit lane for 21 ish seconds. So the rest was just a splash and go, potentially with Ross Cato and Grant Davis in there for 14 seconds, along with Brett Larson. They could have taken tires, but with only 4 sets in the box, if you take tires now, you are at a complete disadvantage from the entire field, and you'll have to pull the Daniel Suarez strategy from yesterday that we saw, where you have to stay out and go off cycle by at least 20 to 30 laps to put yourself back on sequence with the remainder of the field.
And to your point about Danson, he's going to stay on the lead lap in the end of this. Yellow flag beneficial maybe to an extent. He'll be 31st, last car on the lead lap. So work for him to do, work for Agano Phillip to do. Andrew Freenosh has got some direction to move still as well. So a lot of big names sprinkled throughout the field that's going to make things fun to keep an eye on. I want to circle back, Terry, to the point you mentioned about fuel saving, because that's kind of been the topic of conversation this week amongst the drivers in the driver council, and looking to make a move in the future to move these 1.5 mile intermediate races from 50% of a Cup Series race length to 60%. The driver's thought is that that extra 10% of race distance would mean that you would be outside of the window to be able to save and to make it a one-stop race or a fuel mileage race. That's something that the Drivers' Council is proposing. Again, not in effect here tonight. This is 50%. Currently, all the races this year scheduled for 50% of the Cup Series length, but that is some chatter amongst the drivers. So it'll be, obviously, yellows are going to change that anytime, any weekend, but as a default, that's kind of been the thought on everybody's mind recently.
Well, do you think if we keep this race green for an extended period of time, our fuel window is kind of janky when it comes to the actual mileage that you get? Because obviously with the Cup Series you can get about 50 something laps. Here you're probably going to get 30 to 35. Those drivers who came down pit lane, while their tires are going to be hot, they're probably going to be 2 seconds, 3 seconds off the pace. If they catch that timely caution, it puts them in the catbird seat, and it's just going to help them flip track position. I don't think they did it as track position right now. They're playing the long game with this one and hoping they can bank on one with fresh tires coming out, cold tires, hot racetrack, other drivers starting to slip. It's going to be interesting to follow along.
And we're going to follow along for the restart. Pace car down and in, still 122 laps to go. It's Thomas George in charge. Green flag back in the air.
Oh, and Bradley Burke, I don't know if he pulled off because he missed a shift or something, but he just dropped to the apron. That's the 20 of gas. What happened? He started on the outside front row, and now the 20 sitting in 24th, now going for 23rd here. That was just crazy. He's up to speed now. That'll be interesting to see if we can kind of find out what happened to him, if maybe somebody queued up on the radio and said it. But to see everybody now, we were too wide for the first 5 or 6 laps. Now we've single filed out. Look at Cody Harris. He's going for the race lead on Thomas George.
Harris going to go underneath the 6 car of George, and we battle side by side for the lead. George has led 11 of the 13 so far, but it'll be Cody Harris in the lead off of turn 2. Doesn't mean he gets the lap led. Still got a couple hundred feet left. Thought maybe that 78 car of Sheen was going to be able to get under him. He can't. The battle's going to be side by side behind them, and it's going to be a bonus point in the back pocket for the Buckeye as Cody Harris leads lap number 14. Right there in the mix as well. The 7 to Kyle Trudell. How about Sam Nieto, though? Look at that orange KTM number 2 Ford. Started back in 10th. He's cracked the top 5, looking for some more. Right now on the outside line, but slices low, pulls into behind the 7.
Yeah, and we'll see if I know Cody's listening. Let's see if he can put this race together. He got his first win on a short track at Bristol. Can this be one of those races that he's showing early speed? Can the speed be consistent throughout this entirety of the race? He's working the outside. We saw him make the pass on the bottom. But he's got some heavier weights in this field. from what we had a season ago, the season before that. Like this league continuously builds more and more people all over the iRacing spectrum. As he got shoved up the racetrack a little bit by Sheen, and Sheen's one of them, Evan, that comes into this league with a ton of experience, a ton of knowledge of these cars, or not of these cars, but a ton of knowledge of racing in general. And didn't he tell us he was going to suck? What's he doing in the lead?
Listen, funny how that plays out sometimes, and maybe a little bit of self-doubt kicked his butt into gear. We also mentioned the fact that most of the races this year will kick off that week on the service, right? We will race on a Monday at X track, and then we will race at that track for the rest of the week on iRacing. But with the Atlanta race being postponed here in RSR to accommodate for the Daytona 500 being moved, we've been at Las Vegas all week on the sim. What could that have done for Liam Sheen? Well, it given him a whole week of NIS for practice, a whole week of private league racing for practice. In theory, if there was anything to be learned about this virtual Las Vegas Motor Speedway, they would have already learned it now to this point. Maybe some of those question marks being eliminated, helping out Sheen as he tries to lock in and control this race for a little bit. But man, it's tough when you see the next 16 cars less than a second off of your bumper.
Well, now it's going to be interesting because I know we kind of get back on schedule, but we go to Phoenix next week, if my math is correct and my memory serves right. So we have another so-called week to prepare. There's more time for preparation. There's more times for things. You see Kyle Trudell kind of shoved it in there under the 28 of Cody Harris, and now Thomas George ducks out from the bottom. He goes back to the outside with his teammate of Joseph Tice. This is fun to watch because people don't necessarily, who don't run the next gen car a ton, the outside lane, it looks to be the fastest at the moment. But man, that thing's loose up there, and the seams from old Las Vegas compared to what the new track surface and the updates that they've kind of done throughout the seasons. This place races like I would say like old Texas, which I'm sure everybody can be agreed that the old Texas is the only Texas that's worth it. But the outside lanes, yeah, it's just a little there. Yeah, it is a very low bar. But the outside lane just is kind of hard to keep it going. But so far, so good as Sam Nieto. He takes that thing 3 wide and hold it down there. He bobbled. That almost was our second caution.
Oh, it checked up Cody Harris, who washed wide, made a bit of a touch with the 5 car, and there they go, wrecking behind.
Once again.
On cue. It's the first shot. And thankfully for Cody Harris, he was not the one involved, but it was Mike Maddox who ended up sideways. It was unrelated to the battle that we were watching. Austin Coop, though, is quick to claim responsibility and will receive an end of the longest line of penalties. So we'll wind it back and have our producer give us a look at what happened between the 30 and the 53 car. They were both in the mid-20s while we were watching that battle inside of the top 5.
Yeah, and he cued Cody on par. I mean, that was perfect. I mean, I wasn't expecting it, but you remember we talked the strategy a little earlier. Now we're starting to see these cars come down pit lane as you see their accordion. A lot of contact being made on the entry to pit lane. I don't expect a lot of people to stay out here. Unless they took tires. And just as I suspected, Ross Cato took tires, Grant Davis took tires, Brett Larson took tires. Not sure if Manazzi Major did. He was on pit lane for 21.1 seconds in the box. If he did take them, that puts them now at the disadvantage because they have to go this strategy. They have no other choice, Evan. Those 4 drivers have to go one more cycle on this set, which they only have 13 on it. We only race technically for about 10 of them. So 10 lap older tires. We'll see if it plays out that the clean air kind of saves them. Can they check this field up enough? And oh yeah, by the way, hey, Andrew Freenage, he's up here. I think that was a fuel only stop.
Freenage was quick in and out. James Ross going to show us the second car off of pit road, but he missed the box. But you are right, for Freenosh, it was fuel only. So he'll be the lead car off of pit road. Currently, that'll put him in 5th position. Ross Cato, Grant Davis, Brett Larson, and Benazzi Major are all drivers who have decided to stay out, and they will cycle through to some of the top positions. Let's see, under the yellow, if we could get a word with one of our own, and it'll be RaceSpotTV in-race reporter, Dylan Coyle. Dylan, you got us?
What happened?
He's trying VR for the first time.
Yeah, we cold.
There he is.
This is
Hello.
an awesome visual, by the way.
Can y'all hear
Just
me?
watching you with the goggles. We can hear you. You got us?
Hi, buddy.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
You just. I can hear you. Can you hear us?
Hello.
No, I don't.
All right,
hear us, Terry.
since he can't hear us, we can let him know that Coca-Cola Zero Sugar is the official fan refreshment of eNASCAR. You see, he's disappointed, just like my ex-wife is, but it's all good. Oh, that was tough. That was a tough one. Dylan, you're sitting in 22nd. Caution flag number 2 waves out here. What strategy are you looking to play as this race progresses?
Well, first, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. Heck
So he
yeah.
answers your question. but not mine.
Strategy-wise, well, what?
It's me.
I'm so confused. Am I live?
You are live.
Am I live? Okay.
I was talking to you for like 30 seconds. You
Okay,
ignored
so
me and
I
answered Terry's
went in
question.
on lap 9, lap 10, decided to take some fuel, no tires, and I gained some spots. Wanted to see how that played out. I think it would have been stretching it. It would have been close if it stayed green for the rest of the way. I didn't think it would stay green. Came back in, got 4 tires, topped off on fuel again. You can make it in one stop, no problem from this point on. But really, it's pack racing, right? You want to stay out of the way of cars that are being a little bit too aggressive. I'm trying not to push it too hard, but it's fun. And VR is an interesting way to do it.
You stole my follow-up question because I was going to ask you how the VR was treating you. You look great with the headset on, by the way.
Thank you. It's it's weird not being able to see anything really around me at all, in person. And at the end of the day, though, it's so immersive, right? Like, I'm not streaming. Usually, I'll stream because I don't want to push the system too much. I want to see if this works. I've never done an online race in VR, so sorry to everybody else who has to race around me, but so far so good,
You look
You're
good
in
out
the
there.
playoffs coming into tonight. I know it's early, but it's been a good year for you. So we appreciate the time, Dylan. Good luck out there. I'm still convinced, by the way, he did not hear any word that I said.
He just ignored you the whole time. I mean,
Does he have me muted? I feel like that's what it's like when you're on like a professional newscast and there's like a 5-second delay, right? Like over the satellite. But
he answered me pretty quick.
He did not answer me one time. So
I was surprised I wasn't muted. I mean, I guess that normally it's me that's the muted one.
Well, the guy who doesn't know how to work the computer, Dylan Coyle, is going to be back in 22nd, but he looks good with his goggles on, so I'll give him that. Restart coming up this time. Pace car off and in. Remember, your top 4 stayed out. It was pit service from everybody. P5 on back. Green flag back in the air. It's a good jump for Cato. But let's see how well those top 4 can hang on.
Well, that kind of answered my question about, are you going to see the tires spin and how quick can Ross get away, right? Because now you have Benazzi Major, you have Brett Larson that was kind of in that no man's land of if they come down pit lane, they burn an extra set of tires, they can't, right? You only get 4 sets. I know you can make it a one more stop, but if the cautions fall kind of perfectly, they will end up leaving here with the last set of tires that they need to kind of get them over there. And you also don't want to be the one that's caught held up there with everybody else having a set but you, as Grant Davis is going to look to the outside here for the race lead and see if he can get a bonus point for leading a lap, and he'll shoot it to turns 3 and 4 and clear so far. We'll see if the run off the exit's going to make it work.
Good enough to stay even, but Davis isn't able to use it to pull away. In fact, the advantage going to be Ross Cato on the inside line of the racetrack, still in a dead heat, battling for the race lead. Behind them, Major and Sheen still side by side. A bit of a bobble there. 78 car checks up. Let's go 3 wide to turn 3.
Why not? Yeah, let's do it. Let's send it 3 wide. And remember, there's old tires, 10 laps older, now 13 laps older than what's the rest of this field's running. So, not what I suspected when I looked up there. Dominic Howe was the first one to get through all of this mess, sitting P4. Freshest tires is there, so he passed Liam Sheen. Kyle Trudell's worked his way, or what did you call him earlier?
Oh, I call people a lot of things, so you got to be more specific.
You said his last name a little weird during the grid.
Trudell?
Yeah.
Listen, I have to submit a Canadian passport renewal application, and I probably got Trudell confused with Trudeau. It happens.
Yeah, you called him Trudeau. I was confused. I was like, wait, we've been saying this. Oh, hard in the wall. Who is that? That was a big crash on the front straightaway.
That was defending race winner Agno Phillip as one of the cars who went spinning down to the grass. There was no yellow, though. That was separate of the 2 car in Sam Nieto, who you saw, Terry. He's the one who got into the outside wall. Those incidents were related. It is 2 cars, so there is no caution. This race stays green.
That was tough contact. I saw the front clip kind of kick off the race car, and then one dive for cover in the middle of our Trudell conversation. But look at how he's able to work through 3 and 4 pretty well. So take a look at the replay, and oh man, who was that got into him? Was that Manazzi?
Yeah, they were 3 wide coming off of the corner. But the 2 car was outside. It was the 10 of Cam Peterson in the middle. And I don't know if Peterson got hit from behind by Larson, but the 10 certainly bobbled, went up into the 2. That's where the hip check came from. And then Agno Phillip turned himself across the nose of a car under them, trying to avoid it. Watch this all happen. Again, the 2 does nothing wrong. Watch the 10 and the 51 below, right? Maybe a touch therein, but right underneath them, right there. The 10's going to get hit or loose. Up into the 2, you see Phillip slide off screen, and the 2 could just never kind of wrangle that thing back under control.
Looks like Peterson got loose. I didn't see a lot of contact there between him and the driver below him, but that was that's a tough blow for the 2 who was having a good run, was making passes on the outside lane, not doing too bad. I flip back to the strategy as I look at my timing sheet here. Not what I expected out of Liam Sheen. I thought that he would be the one, the first car to get through this field, but it has not been him. It was Dominic Howe, Thomas George, and Kyle Trudell was the first 3. And you still have Manazzi Major, last week's winner, sitting in that 3rd place position, able to kind of hold that bottom, play a ton of defense here. I 100% expected to see a ton. As you see Sheen, he got really aggressive there, kind of pulled the switch over, went all the way back down to the bottom, was hounding the back bumper, and now he's going to challenge for the 4th place position.
Sheen has not been afraid to be aggressive in this one, has led 10 laps after starting on pole, hasn't slipped much further back than where he sits now, but as we stretch things out on one of the runs, he's fallen back a little bit, but clears the 82.
We had one driver almost around. I'm not sure who that was. It might have been the 95 of Bradley Burke or the 19. He changed his number. That's weird. Go back to the 95. He got up and out of the groove. You see the 51 sliding all over the place. In the wall he goes. Clipped him and around everybody. Front straightaway, 3 cars hard into the wall.
It took about a half a lap for the Narek, says Joseph Tice. It was just a messy 1.5 miles, and eventually, as there were still cars off pace and off speed, they finally wrecked him off in turn number 4. It all started with the Brett Larson sideways there. He gets a bit of a side swipe on the way by, but again, he still hasn't reeled it in, and right there comes down, and the unfortunate victim is the 50 car who gets collected in it. That's Chris Treppa. Also, the 28 of Cody Harris gets a big kick of that one.
Can I say that was stupid?
I mean, yeah. I mean,
is that allowed to be said? That was kind of stupid. Stay on the wall. Like, why would you come all the way down the racetrack? Like, that makes no sense to me. I'm sure people are in agreement, but if you're clobbering the wall, stay in the wall. You know, 2 cars just ruined in that race, in that wreck for for what? Like, sit up there and ride it. You made the mistake. You got loose. They didn't wreck themselves. You wrecked them.
Cody Harris says his toe link is no longer present on the car. He's going to have to try to limp it to pit road. So he's obviously pretty heavily damaged. Sometimes it's weird. I would say less tricky on the sim to track, Terry, than in the real world, right? If a car gets spun around, is it either 100% okay, or did it break the toe link and it's killed? It's not quite as black or white on the surface, but Harris feels like he's got a significant amount of damage. And as expected, the top half of the field do not come down pit road, and then everybody down is from the tail end, plus those involved.
Yeah, even Matt Mara agreed with me out there in the chat. Appreciate you for agreeing there. We continuously go back to the strategy part of this race, and you got a lot of people that just kind of couldn't get off of the limb that they were on. You saw Manazzi Major come down, a couple others that stayed out on that initial run. Actually, all of the drivers that stayed out came down the pit lane. So I'm not going to say they're necessarily in the catbird seat, because they only went 15 laps and they didn't lose a ton of time. I mean, the only people that really lost in that sequence was the 51, Brett Larson. I mean, he's the one that, kind of couldn't hang on to the car. Everybody else was doing pretty decent. I mean, Major was still up in the top 6. You still had Cato kind of flirting around up there. It'll be interesting to see just 15 laps on the tires, or 13 green flag laps on the tires, make a big difference in lap time. I mean, their best around here, Dominic Howe, has a 29.9. Tire wear kind of wasn't on my radar. I thought we would have what we're getting, 3 cautions early on.
Well, the one person who is not going to complain about the yellow is going to be Matt Danson. He's been constantly playing catch-up and hoping for some of the yellow flags to get himself back on cycle. I don't think Danson's car is quite in the position that he would want yet, but again, it's tricky to tell because his qualifying lap was about 2 seconds slower than anybody else. He didn't put down a lap in practice, and then the aforementioned issues with him on the grid means that he's a little bit of a mystery to us still. Kind of hard to predict blanketly that, oh yeah, Danson gets kind of back on cycle with everybody, and all of a sudden we're going to be, right back lockstep. The one thing that kind of quietly happened through all of that battling is Dominic Howe locking himself in as the leader. We've seen a handful of guys lead laps tonight. It's Cody Harris, Manazzi Major, Grant Davis, Ross Cato, Dominic Howe, Liam Sheen, and Thomas George. That's in order from least to most laps led, but Dominic Howe looking pretty comfortable up there in the number 1 spot.
Well, I mean, the spirit of Massachusetts is the spirit of America. Cool cleanup note. My bad. So apparently Bradley Burke changed his number as it was his grandpa's number. And he passed away 2 weeks ago. So RIP, Grandpa Burke. My bad. Still missed the 95. It's my one. But the 24 or the 07 holding this race. He has a 24 on the hood, but the 07 leading the race. Not bad. He's been fast all race long. Can he stay ahead of the strategy? Or are we going to see one of those drivers like Tice, who's been quick, Cato, Davis, Papinel, maybe even Andrew Freenage, who quietly came down pit lane, caught a little damage, but was only in the box for 15 seconds. So 4 tires and fuel with a little damage repair kind of helped him out.
Well, lights out on top of the pace car. This will be the 3rd yellow flag to fall to the wayside. The restart will have 94 to go. To put the Larry Mack hat on, as you say, the trends would suggest that you get a couple of yellows early, but it will stretch its legs at some point towards the middle. Does that happen here? There's going to be a decent amount of battling in the midfield, with the leaders having stayed out for the last 17 to 30 or so laps amongst the different strategies. You got fresh tires that have fuel from 15th on the back. I think that may make it a little bit more hairy in the midfield. We'll keep an eye to see if that is where all of the action is. Pace car off and away. Howe chooses the inside line to control this restart. Green flag back in the air. It's a mammoth restart for the 07.
Well, I'll use my prediction, my crystal ball. We will not have another caution flag in the second half of this race. Potentially about 45 to go. We'll go caution free to the end. I predicted the caution last week. I'll predict the no caution here at the end of this one. Go 4, maybe even 5 wide back there in the back as Trudell almost looked to the inside, had a massive run as we're side by side for third. George got washed up the track there by the 10 of Patterson. We've seen him pinballing people around here as 3 wide now for the 5th and 6th place position.
Those top 2 have been able to get away. The 3 wide is back there in the battle for P5. Middle of the sandwich is going to be the 15 car moving forward. That's Maverick Davis. Bad exit off of 2 for Cam Peterson. He'll lose 2 full spots, and he'll get back down to 2x2 and try to fight it out from there. That 44 Lariah top side, knocking on the door, but Peterson, instead of the mistake in that corner, you ignore that. He's had a pretty good night, started 19th inside of the top 10 now.
Well, I mean, you can erase history. You know, we did it for a while in America. Not sure about Canada, but we erase history here. But I mean, yeah, you're right. He has had a good race. It just that little bit of the incident caused the checkup there, brought out the caution flag, but he's been clean and green since then, working his way inside this top 10, sitting in 8th now, slipping back just a bit by these drivers that are coming out here on fresher tires. We talked to Dylan Coyle, first race in the VR headset, sitting in the 12th place position as we speak, now 11th. So starting to make some trends up this racetrack, and he's got some help too. He's got the 5 right on his back bumper, giving him all the momentum possible to pass, believe that is Nicholas Mara there.
Yeah, Dylan's had a good start to the year. Got a top 10 last week at Atlanta, the P25 at Daytona. Bit of a throwaway number because he had led laps in that race, and those ones are always hard to gauge, but has been a good enough start to the year for him. Again, one of those, I would say, a surprise driver to be a spoiler, make it in the top 16 to make the playoffs, and maybe take a spot away from somebody else who would otherwise expect to find themselves there. You're looking at the 9 of Jaron Weidemaster trying to get up to Peterson, who just hasn't had a great restart. Again, these cars with fresher tires are going to start to catch them, but this is infighting on the same strategy between the 10 and the 9. Just not the best to restart for Patterson. To behind him, though, is where the 2x2 is, so they're trying to race to stay ahead of that swarm that's coming quickly.
Man, you and names tonight is just like our producer and boy bands. It's perfect. Like you're doing your thing. But yeah, I mean, you've got the 2x2 back there. Coyle got clear, so now it's Tyson Mara fighting it out. This will be fun if we can kind of keep an eye on that battle behind. How hard do these drivers on old tires race the drivers on new tires? Because that's going to change how the rest of this race is played out. They've gotten up to 12th. That's it. So not a ton of action going on around that position. For all of those drivers that came down the pit lane, maybe tires wasn't the move. You burned a set, but was it worth burning the set? You're not making the charge through the field. I mean, the 5 of Tice just really isn't able to make the pass around Coyle. Coyle's actually doing the right thing. He's blocking the air that it takes to get off the exit of these corners and making the 5 check up a ton.
We saw the air be a big factor in the battle for the win over the weekend between Larson and Reddick towards the end, and it is to an extent a similar battle here on the sim, is trying to control what's going on behind you. I see up front though some side by side, maybe all the way for the lead. On the inside of Kyle Trudell, to the outside is Dominic Howe. Nobody clear that time. They'll drag race again off the backstretch. The 07 of Howe, the advantage that time through, but the 70 car has been underneath him the last couple of laps, hasn't been able to complete the pass, and Howe again shakes him off topside. It is some impressive defensive driving courtesy of the 07 just by staying in that preferred spot.
Well, normally when you come to Vegas, 7s is what you want to see. I just didn't think that we would see the 07 and the 7 fighting for the race lead. I kind of thought it would be the 78 in his race to lose, or maybe even the Agnell Phillip machine of the 94. but a pleasant surprise to see the new names rise to the top. RSR's, been one of the mainstays on iRacing. As I believe Throttle led that lap by the slimmest of margins when they crossed the start-finish line, but a great exit off of 4 clears the number 7 as there's smoke ahead, but no caution as the crossover happens down the back.
They flip-flop lanes now. The 07 car going to try to go on the defense on the opposite line. Can he make it worth at both ends of the racetrack? One car slow on the apron. That's Cody Harris, who returns to pit road as the 7 to Throttle clearing the 07 and is now led, although it's the last 2 laps in a row, technically first real one out in front completely. And now we'll see, does he lock in, try to lead a couple of laps up front, or will the 07 strike back quick? He's on the bumper, and while they fought side by side for a couple of laps, it invited the likes of George and Sheen, 3rd, 4th on back. They closed that gap a little bit. Top 5 cars separated by less than half a second. Keep an eye on the 6 and company because they're closing in.
And take a look at the driver sitting in 5th, Brandon Gass. Just a restart or 2 ago, he almost came to a complete stop on the apron and fell back to 27th. He's now back inside the top 5. How good is the 20? Like that's something that you don't necessarily see people drive through the field here. You can make a ton of passes, but it's gotten harder and harder over the years through the evolution of this car, the evolution of the racetrack, and also the driver fighting for second. Thomas George, can he do what the Kyle Larson car did yesterday? He's sponsored by Valvoline as well. Can he put that thing in there? As Sheen got really aggressive there as 3 wide into 3.
3 wide with George on the bottom. There's going to be contact on the outside. The 78 and the 07 leaning on each other. And the 20 of Brandon Gass watches on from 4th. He and the 44 car have got the best seats in the house. All of this is for 2nd spot on the back. Oh, real tight that time. Got George 4 wide on the exit of turn number 2. It's not going to work. There goes Lariah. He and Howe into the outside wall, and the yellow flies.
Man, that's a real tough break for the 07 of Howe. He had a great race going. An absolute phenomenal race. Led laps, was really good, was really consistent. I think he was on the winning strategy. We'll take a look at the replay here. It was cut and dry. 4 wide doesn't work for long, and it didn't work in this situation as George kind of came up the racetrack. No room on the bottom for him. It just pushed the 44 Lariah right into Dominic Howe, and that's a toe link. That's most definitely a toe link problem, maybe even 5 minutes of damage repair for the 07, and he won't have a race-winning car now.
It's a tough break. To your point, his night had been going so well, and there was nothing really the 07 machine could have done there.
Is he going for payback?
I think the sim is gonna give him his spot back in line. I think he's trying to drive back into whatever that gap is before they get to pit road. Tricky to do so though, because looks like he is going to have to avoid Philip. I think he's just trying to get back to his spot.
I was hoping he was going for payback.
But you can tell, that car ain't driving too well. You can see the right front. If we stick with this shot, when the car comes right past us, we should see the unnatural skew of that right front tire. It's not looking how it's supposed to.
Technically he's the race leader again, so not too bad. If he restarts like that, that would be phenomenal. Lightning McQueen won the Piston Cup with a car looking just like that. Just saying.
I don't know if Dominic's going to be able to pull that off. But to your
stranger
point,
things have happened.
Stranger things have happened. I don't think he's going to restart this race on 3 tires. I suspect he'll go down and pit. That would hand the lead off to Davis, and again would give us kind of a weird conglomerate of the top 10 like we've seen the last few times. Again, all the cars involved in the accident pit. About the back half of the field came down pit road and pitted. But you've got Davis, Major, Phillip, Freenosh, Coop, Cato staying out. Morano's been out there for some time. Stayed with
Looks like Dominic's staying out.
There he is.
He
He's coming
jinxed
down.
us.
He was trying to just get the extra lap led. See if 18 can get enough for the second bonus point, and now we'll see just how much damage repair the 07 car has to undergo, and if that car can get back into a competitive form. The bodywork doesn't look all that bad. Again, it's that damage on the right front tire that's really going to do it for him.
That's heartbreaking. I mean, we saw one of the coolest wins last week, and I thought for certain that we would potentially see another. I wouldn't say surprise winner, because it was no surprise that we finally saw a Minotzi Major win. I mean, he had been trying at it for so long, and he had been, very consistent. He started getting better and better runs throughout the year, but. It's good. This is good for the series. This is good for the league that we're seeing these new names come up here and lead the races. I mean, look at it. We're back to a random top 7. Like, we haven't really talked Agnell Phillip, which is weird because he's a winner in this season. He's a previous 2-time champion in this series, and he's sitting third now. I believe this is the first time, Evan, he's been in the top 10, much less the top 5. Andrew Freenage, the GOAT, he's finally up here. Austin Coops worked his way in this position, and Tom Morano sitting there in 7th. That's a good one to follow as well. Is this the winning strategy? He's on the oldest tires at 35 laps. Anybody else in this field, can he save a set? And if we get a late race caution, make it work? There's Austin Coop just sitting in his man coop.
He's just kind of riding around right now. He's been chatty on the radio. There's a look at Ross Cato, got the Braves jersey up in cap in the background, the driver out of Atlanta, Georgia. All of these drivers giving us those live look-ins. And I will say, we do have a little bit more freedom with access to some of these driver radios. So maybe in some of the next shows coming up, we'll pull in some more drivers and try to catch a word with them as this race continues to progress. But again, some angst maybe is the way to put it after some drivers frustrated. I wouldn't say always with one another, but just the situation that the draft and the bubble has been putting them in. So, some drivers have been chatty on the radio discussing it. Also worth noting, nobody claiming that most recent incident. That one's going to go to a post-race review. So as this caution flag number 4 will fall to the rear view mirror, we are just tiptoeing closer and closer to the halfway point in this race. And it's important to note that the halfway point coming up soon at the end of lap 67 will be halfway home. Remember, bonus points will be paid out to the drivers inside of the top 10. So expect things to get a little bit aggressive when we get to that benchmark. That's going to be at about 8 laps time from now. Pace car's gone. So is the 24. Green flag is back in the air.
Man, I totally forgot about the halfway stage points. Could have played a massive factor in the strategy that we've seen from the 24, the 94, the 82, the 88, just looking for extra points to build it up in there. Liam Sheen making contact right there. I believe that's with Coop going into the corner. That's going to put them all 3 wide, and old tires versus new tires, Evan, that's going to be the key in this one. And look at there, the runs off the exit of the corners. We'll go side by side down the front stretch into turns 1 and 2.
Okay, those top 3 are clear of it all. It's the battle from there on back, and look at Liam Sheen. Super aggressive on entry to clear Minotzi Major, but then it kind of washed up on exit. Going to be good enough for him to shut the door. You see some cars pulling up or some others down in line on the back stretch there. A lot of movement, but Sheen loves the bottom on entry, and he's going to drive right up and alongside Freenage in a battle for 3rd. They're 3 wide back here for about 7th or so, with the lowest car, the 6 machine of George, using the apron before they get back to 2x2. back off it into turn number 1. The 9 at Jaron Widemaster, the Minazzi Major car, the 82 car, Terry, top 10 for the first time tonight. Same with Austin Coop. All of these cars who have stayed out trying to hold off the cars on fresh tires, but Liam Sheen is making those new Goodyear Eagles work, and he is to the inside, looking now for P1.
Yeah, it's not working for the strategy that they played. Now, it might get them some stage points at the end of lap number 67, but it's not going to get them the stage win as the 78 of Sheen has taken that lead. Gas is going to come up, look to the inside of the 24 as well, but still, I mean, it is a mixed bag across the board. The only driver that's dropped outside the top 10 who stayed out on that caution, Ross Cato. Everybody else is 10th and up, so not too bad. They flipped the track position to the right way, and if we get a caution right at the halfway point, Evan, that's a net win for all of those drivers.
That is going to be the key, is trying to score some points, get a moral victory, and if you're going for the short-term benefit of the bonus points, or you're going for the long-term benefit of trying to fight for the race win, this time by, going to be 3 laps to go before the stage. Again, there is no caution flag at the stage break. We keep racing. Points awarded to the drivers inside of the top 10. 10 for first, 1 for 10th. You can do the math from there on and in between. And Brandon Gass and Thomas George on the fresh tires have followed Sheen up front. Do they take a crack at the top spot?
Well, if you're a major right now sitting in that 10th place position, you're praying for a caution flag now, because that'll guarantee you that 1 point, and you won't have to race this additional lap on those tires. Then you come down pit lane and make the tire change that you want to have, and then it also leaves you with the 1 extra set. You would expect that a lot of these drivers would come down at the halfway point to make it to the end, which would either set them out of tires or put them with 2, but Sheen's taken off with this one as he has George right to his back bumper.
He's all the way to the bumper. Look at Minazzi Major and company side by side. That one going to be for one of the last spots in to get some bonus points as Michael Araya, P10, currently sitting to score a single one. Big slide for Austin Coop, though. He'll throw away P9. They're going to go 3 wide down the back straightaway as Coop's going to fall out of the payouts. Meanwhile, up front, halfway, this time home, and Liam Sheen going to score the 10 bonus points as he leads with the cross flags in the air.
Bradley Burke was your 10th place driver, got a really big run on Minazzi Major in that 82 off the exit of 4. Now he'll take it 3 wide up to the outside lane on Freenage and company. Not a bad run. I thought we would see the caution flag when you watch the driver wash up the racetrack, but they held on to it as cars in the wall in turns 3 and 4. He did the right thing and stayed on the wall and didn't come down like a madman. But still, Sheen getting the 10 points. Can he capitalize this with the biggest payout of the night with the race win?
Now you've got some points in your pocket. Again, the addition of the midway race break bonuses have exceeded the previous max points night from 42 to 52. Of course, you got to lead the most laps, lead the midway point, and win the race to get that number. Well, Sheen's doing a good job so far. This time by, he leads his 18th lap of the afternoon. And it ties Dominic Howe, who's out of this race with damage, for the most laps led. So one more trip around, and he's going to have the most laps led. Now still a long way to go. 64 left next time by, but Liam Sheen doing everything he can to put it on him here in Vegas.
He needs it. I mean, he told us last week leaving Atlanta, I suck in this car. We get to the 1.5 miles, I'll probably be in the back. Well, maybe that was his way of saying, I'm going to be up front. So far, so good. I mean, I think you're correct in what you said a little while ago of he had the opportunity this week to go run NIS. He had the opportunity to run in the practice sessions. He was able to run some A-fixed races to get himself prepared for this one. And so far, so good. I mean, that's the same thing with, is that additional practice session what we've been missing? Like, is this something we look at next season and go, huh, maybe we go a week after every single week and gives the racing product better? Granted, we've still seen almost the same amount of cautions we've seen in previous seasons here, Evan. But look at the names that it's bringing up to the front now. I mean, just think about it. This is, if you would have told us to start the season, hey, here's the list of names, pick and choose who's going to be in the top 10, we probably wouldn't have put half of them up there. We just would have went with the regular 10 that we knew.
That's the key, and it's always interesting to see different names step up to the plate. The field's going to have to bear high, yield to some of the slower cars on the apron, as some of the big names from the opening third of this race have found themselves no longer in a competitive state after some of the incidents. The 94 of Agadil Phillip started 17th. That was a bit on the back foot. He's doing everything he can to chip away, but this time on the defensive, as here comes Maverick Davis in the 15 car. Davis going to go underneath. This battle no longer for a bonus point at midway, but it's still for P9 and 10, and the 15 cars got it on the bottom. Agnell seemingly struggling a little bit at this point in the run. Remember, his tires about 20 laps older than those around him, and with Freenosh knocking, you got Whitaker, Coyle, Mara, and more. It may be a rough segment here for the 94 if these drivers can keep closing in and have the laps to make these moves on them.
Well, and for the 94, he's kind of glad now that he has a race win. I mean, let's not forget, he was our season opener winner in this series. So he kind of has that, in his back pocket of, I can have a couple bad races. Granted, it's not going to be, the greatest when he goes into the playoffs if he only has that one win for the bonus points to carry on throughout the season. But it's still good to be like, hey, I can struggle in the first half of the season with the tire change, with the aero change to these cars. The front grills were changed on some of them. They're just going to race different. Maybe with the elevation of talent that we've seen in this league year after year, it's starting to catch up with them. I mean, we saw Kevin King last year kind of come in. Agnell really didn't win a ton once we saw Kevin come back and race a little bit. And we've got newer names that are in this one. Maverick Davis being one of them. You've got Brandon Gass coming in here. Liam Sheen coming in as well. Not too shabby. But look who's running now in 12th. We hit this topic earlier where he was a lap down, got his lap back, and was able to try to climb through this field. Matt Danson has worked his way inside the top 15 for the first time. Now he's looking for a top 10 if he could just chase down Braden Whitaker.
Trying to chase down Whitaker and company. Whitaker has kind of been right here all night long. Bare end of the top 10. Trying to get a little bit more out of it lap by lap and ahead of, the battle between Danson, Phillip, Coyle, Freenosh, and company. But they're about 3 seconds off of this group up here, which is about 5th position and back. Winemaster P4, he's got it. Trudell and Burke want it. And look at the 7 car pushing the 9 down the back straightaway that time and off and into turn number 3. You will not be shocked to learn that every car in the top 10 cars who pitted on the most recent yellow, they have cycled through to the front of the field and are squarely in control currently on the pace of this race. There goes Burke, though, looking under the 7. It's a late arch. It's going to be tough for him to get back to the throttle on the bumps inside, though, of 1 and 2, but he got the position. Will the 7 car clear him back, or can the 19 set up and try to get in 3? He'll stay right there underneath him.
Yeah, he kind of had no choice. He never truly got clear there. As you take a look at the battle for the race lead, Sheen pulled away a good bit. Did he burn his stuff up? The last time across the start-finish line, it was a 30.058 to a 0.036. So George using the draft to his advantage, able to work his Sheen had a big moment in turns 1 and 2, had to check out of the throttle. He was almost completely out of it. George going to turns 3 and 4. Oh, Sheen's pitching. Damn, that's big.
It's aggressive stuff, courtesy of Liam Sheen. He wants to stay in the race lead. Thomas George has led laps so far tonight. So he is no stranger to being up front, but wants to get himself back in control of this Las Vegas 200 as we close in on 50 laps to go in the Nevada desert. They're about 1.1 seconds over Brandon Gass in third and on back. If a battle for the race lead ensues, just watch those intervals on the left-hand scoring pylon. See if Gass, see if Widemaster or Throttle, those cars about a second and change off for the leaders, if they're able to close in a little bit if these two do battle. But it seems like George is kind of recharging the batteries, getting set to take another swing at the 78 car, and Sheen's got to know it's coming. He's paying more attention to the rearview mirror right now than the windshield as he tries to anticipate when the 6 gets to him. What is Thomas George going to try to do?
Well, I mean, if I was Thomas George, I'd be mad. That was a very aggressive pinch. I mean, he got all the way down. He had the run. He was able to make the position work, and Sheen just drove it in there and just turned it all the way down and almost touched the door of the 6. How mad does that make Thomas? He knows he's fast. He stayed consistent with him all race long. I mean, we saw Sheen pull away for just a little bit, maybe 5 or 6 laps, but then George was able to work his way back up to the back bumper and get that run after the bobble in turns 1 and 2. I know it's late in the race, but that was a very big aggressive move that could have ended both of their races had they not been as talented as they are.
It admittedly, to me, seems like it's not late enough for a move, but I will say we've seen aggressive stuff all night long, so I'm not going to be shocked by anybody wanting to defend. And if there's one spot where you get the A-OK to be a little bit more aggressive in your defensive maneuvers, I think it's understandable in the battle for the race lead, because what we've seen here is George got to Sheen quick, made a big move, wasn't able to make it happen, and it's taken him, what, now 5-6 laps just to kind of set back up and to go forward again. It's difficult for the 6 car to get all the way to the 78. So Sheen making a big block or making a pinch or whatnot, that's not just buying him a lap, it's buying him 5 to 6 to 7 laps up front. But that 78 is pushing, and that's a big mistake there. Sideways off of the corner. Here comes George. 6 car to the outside. He's got the lead. Is he clear to turn number 1? He is. Liam Sheen bobbles, and the 6 car pounces, and it goes back to P1.
Oh, and the 6 threw a mega block on Liam Sheen there. He kind of played the same strategy. Now, how does George go into the corner? You see him there. He gave him about a lane and a half to make any mistakes. Sheen tried to check up to hit the side draft. Not going to work. George still leads the lap. Now, how does he play turns 1 and 2? They're side by side. Does he go all the way down and kind of roll with him? He does. Sheen comes up the track to him for the side draft, but it's not going to work. George gets the run. He'll hold the lead, not by a lot, but can he pinch him into 3? But George doesn't want to do it, but he'll do it now. He pinched him all the way down, trying to take the air off the 78, and George tries to go back up here.
He goes right back down and underneath him, and now side by side again in the battle for the lead. And here comes Brandon Gass. He was a full second behind them no more than a few minutes ago. And just as we suspected, when they started fighting side by side, he's joined the party. Sheen clear for George. George will give the 78 a shove down the backstretch. But now for the 6 car, can you get back to Liam Sheen before Brandon Gass can get to you? Because here comes the 20 to the inside in the battle for second.
Yeah, that was the biggest story coming into this one. Is every time you take a run, you have to make the run stick. If you don't, that allows everybody else to catch you. Now the 20's been consistently faster thanks to the 2x2 racing that we saw. Now, how does that allow Throttle? How about Winemaster up to the 4th place position? With these 3 being as close to one another, does it allow those 2 to work their way into this one? How about the 15 of Maverick Davis? He's in that 6th place position and closing. They're all starting to accordion back to what we saw in the opening laps of this race, but how long does it take the 20 to get around the 78, who's been statistically looser and looser every lap we've gone?
And on the longest run like this so far tonight, 30-plus laps removed for the last time that we were under caution flag conditions when a lot of these top cars came down, got the tires that have given them the track position. You know, for the alternating strategies, basically every yellow through that kind of 1/3 to halfway point in this race. Seems like these drivers lucked out on timing because, again, right now they have taken control of this race. And I know it's not as sexy as the battle for P1 theory, but just credit where it's due. Matt Danson's a top 10 car, and he just made a nutter pass to go to P8. So Danson has worked hard coming back from some setbacks on the grid. I know the VRS Chevy wants some more, but a tip of the cap where it's due. Danson a race high P8, and I think he feels like he's got more to go still.
Absolutely. It most certainly does. I mean, his lap times have been very competitive with our top 5. Last time he crossed the start-finish line was a 30.071. He's up there. Like, he's in that conversation, top 5 speed. But I told you after the last caution, we would go caution-free after halfway. Man, 43, now about to be 42 more laps to go. I'll say I told you so when we see the checkered.
And we'll see as this one continues on, again, with some work to do. But Danson well up from where he started this race in 30th, sitting right now in the number 8 spot on the racetrack, squished between Burke and Tice. On those top 10, again, you see it left-hand side of your screen. He's watching the battle in front of him that has Maverick Davis trying to fight with Bradley Burke, Jaron Weinmaster. Weinmaster may be struggling a little bit on the tail end of this run. 9 cars have been slipping back a little bit. All of this is within 2 seconds of those leaders, and Brandon Gass, after taking P2 from Thomas George, will not go away, but he is yet to get to the bumper of the 78 car, but he's keeping him honest. Those top 2 have opened that gap right back up to a second plus over the cars third on back.
Yeah, I mean, once they got away from this field, they kind of separated themselves as the ones. The 51 goes around to pit lane. I think he was trying to come down there and just kind of missed it. Not 100% sure what Larson was doing. You see these drivers having to come down pit lane. Andrew Freenage coming down. Grant Davis was in. Papanow, Manazzi Major on pit lane. Sawa, the drivers who either did not pit or just wanted to split it. I'd imagine they could, as here comes Liam Sheen for the final pit stop of the evening as well.
This is going to be it for these drivers to be able to make it to the end, and it's a big decision by both Sheen and George to come down pit road early. Sheen basically ensuring that he can't get undercut by some of the other drivers on the same strategy as him, but he needs to execute the clean stop. First time we've seen green flag of pit service tonight. Sheen is into the box. It's going to be 4 tires and a fuel for everybody that comes in, and less than a 40-lap run to go to the end of the race. Gas responds. He comes down pit road the lap immediately following. Let's see, though, where does that put the 78 car and the 20 as they will cycle back out and onto the racetrack. And these cars have taken over the lead. Right now it's that 15 machine, Maverick Davis in the lead with Burke and the 7 of Trudell hot on his heels. Sounds like some of them may be in this time as well.
Yeah, I would imagine to see a couple of these cars take the overcut and try to go as over as they possibly can. I watched it work last season in the PRL Cup Series where the overcut was the way to go. You saw drivers locking it up coming to pit lane. You watched the 51 of Larson almost go completely around going to pit lane. If that happens at this moment, your top 10 shakes up even harder. A couple drivers still off the lead lap. Gas went a lap down. Sheen's a lap down. So caution flag could change it all. I think you have to continuously play this cut as here comes Burke. He's going to come down pit lane, and he got loose as well once he transitioned from the banking to the pit lane.
It's a sneaky, tricky pit road entrance that not a lot of people give it credit for, but that transition, to your point, even though there is progressive banking and it is not as aggressive as a transfer as it is at some other places, that combined with how tight you got to turn the wheel on the exit if you want to avoid going to the apron mid-corner means that it is a sneaky, tricky pit road entrance here. It's so easy to find yourself off it into the grass or overshooting it if you're trying to get this thing down to the pit road speed limit here of 50 miles an hour. Pretty surprised, though, that the likes of Davis and others have stayed out this long. Danson to maybe make it a little bit more sense. He's on a bit of a different strategy, but thought when we saw gas respond quick that we were going to be talking about a 3 to 4 lap long fuel window. Everyone was just going to pit, get it done, and get out there together. Not the case yet. Now, Nick Mara says he'll be pitting from the number 7 spot. Dylan Coyle going to be doing the same. But again, what we're looking for, and they're not there yet, but Sheen in 11th right now on your leaderboard, a lap down. He's going to be the net leader. We're watching for those cars as they start to go back up the order as Tice, Mara, and Coyle are all down pit road.
Well, I mean, they could take the Ross Cato approach. He's 62 laps, now 63 on this tire stint and fuel run. It's doable to continuously roll. They could play the log game. I mean, they've got to go, Sheen does, an entire lap around you, and then an entire lap around to catch you. Not saying you can make it all the way here, but, I mean, you can easily take this down. Cato's showing it for another 20 or so. It'd be fun to watch. It's a fun story to hit. 20 more laps. Then you come down pit lane, try to play the long game. Agnell Phillips in that ballpark as well with 64 laps on his stuff. Could be a real possibility that some of these drivers want to stretch it as far as possible, bank on a caution, and get it done.
We will see if that late gamble may play off for some of those drivers. If there's a city to do it in, we touched on it right at the top, this is the place to do it. There's a second look, bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And what happened there, flip it around the live look, bottom right-hand corner of your screen there, as Maverick Davis continues to lead this race. He is about a half a second ahead of Matt Danson. They are 5 seconds ahead of Agnell Phillip. Again, all those cars still on the same strategy. So are the battle right here between the 10 of Patterson and the 44 of Lariah, with Patterson getting the advantage that time by the start-finish line. So drop Lariah down to P5. Those lead 7, still the only cars on the lead lap, and also the only cars yet to come down pit road.
You know what would change this entire race?
Don't even say it.
Wasn't going to say it. I just try to make you say it. I was trying to.
Talking about.
I was trying.
Josh, if you know what we're saying, put Cody Harris is on board.
Yeah.
On the screen, right? That's what we noticed earlier. More cars to pit road. Phillip is in. Lariah is in. And up front, there goes Liam Sheen. He just unlapped himself.
Oh, he sneezed.
Bless you, Cody.
Zoom tight.
Already been able to get his service completed. Davis got unlapped there by Sheen. So Sheen is now officially back on the lead lap. It takes away some of the benefit possibly of maybe staying out and getting the yellow, is the fact that, well, now you're not going to trap them all a lap down. But Sheen is back on the lead lap. Thomas George is back on the lead lap. Feels like a matter of time. Cam Patterson will bow out. He comes to pit road, and the magic number sits now at only the top 4 cars who have yet to come down.
I mean, it's worth the shot. Cato's on 68. That's 20 laps. 29 to go. I'm not saying it's possible, but, you know, anything's possible if you use your imagination.
It's almost like a high-speed waiting game. Cato bows out. They slowly draw.
He had no choice. Cato had no choice at all. Going 68 to 69 laps on a tank of fuel, he banked on those caution flags that we saw early. Those 2 caution flags that we had. Danson's in as well.
Yep, they picked the same lap, not the last time by, so he's got to come down. They're at their limit. What that does mean, though, is the other 2, Davis and Maddox, only pitted about 50 laps ago. That's about a 19-lap difference. Keen observers, Terry, will note that there are more than 19 laps to go in this race, so I do not think they're in a position where they can make it to the end, but they do have some more wiggle room in trying to stay out if they want to maybe try to catch that yellow. I feel like if you've stayed out off cycle by the 12 or 13 laps you've done already, you might as well just kind of run it all the way, commit to the bit, and play it out. We'll see if Davis and Maddox do go those extra 19 laps or so that they have on fuel. But yeah, Danson, he hit his number. He had no choice.
I don't want to sound like a pessimistic butthole. I don't know if I can say that either. I said it. Big deal. Get over it. If you're Maddox, it doesn't matter if you stay out on this racetrack. If a caution does not come out here in, like, I don't know, 10 laps, you're done. I mean, if it doesn't happen, you've lost that much time. If you're Maverick Davis, stay out. Like, do not pit. You're in a great position. Look at this. There's drivers loose off the exit of the corners. That's Maddox in the 30. You're hoping that the 30 continuously becomes looser and looser and looser, and he's trying as hard as possible to stay on this lead lap. If we were to get the flag of a SpongeBob color, it gives you a good opportunity at this moment to stay ahead of the tire strategy. You gain a ton of track position. Maverick Davis and Maddox was not inside the top 10, or Davis was, but the 30 wasn't. So Tice is still a lap down. Freenage is a lap down. You only got 8 cars on the lead lap. They're all going to pit, and if they don't pit, you have the tire advantage by 12, 13, 14, maybe even 15 laps. Gives you 20, 22, 23 laps to go up there and try to steal a win, or at least a top 5.
23 to go. Dominic Howe in the 07 car says that more pit stops coming up this time. The 2 machine of Sam Nieto also mentioning that pit stops coming up for him. So these cars, again, towards the tail end. Some of the stragglers who had yet to pit. So I did say it was only Davis and Maddox. There's other cars, but they're several laps down, no longer in a competitive state. So it's, I guess, true. But they're going to have to come in again. They've also tried to stay out, catch a yellow, get a lap back or so, and just haven't been able to do so. There's also no battle between Davis and Maddox, right? That they're not really on the same strategy, same fuel number, but they have not been running together on the track. They're about 16 seconds apart, kind of in their own different battles. But even to the point where you could give Mike Maddox, I think, the extra 10 laps of fuel if he needs it. I think Sheen's still going to get him there regardless. Sheen would not get all the way to Davis, so maybe Maddox simply pits once Sheen catches him. Maybe the lifespan of the Davis call goes longer, but almost at 22 laps to go. I mentioned it earlier, Terry, that you tend to get some of the yellows early, then you get your green flag legs, right? You get your land legs underneath you midway. That's what we've seen now. Man, Maverick Davis driving that car hard, got a piece of the fence that time in 2.
Well, and I'll feel really bad too if I threw everybody's strategy off and I'm correct and we go 20 more laps without a caution, that I literally said we would not get another one after halfway. So I would expect my inbox on Discord to be filled with 2 hate messages, one from the 15 and one from the 30, which is fine. I respect that, but this is the perfect strategy for the 15. You talked about surprise winners a week ago, that who was going to be that driver that just comes out of nowhere and steals the victory, as Maddox is going to come down pit lane. If I'm the 15, just stay out. Do not pit, and he's going to pit. I would have stayed on this racetrack for as long as possible and just full sent that thing, because now, what did you gain? You're going to go a lap, 2 laps down at this moment. You could have had a top 2 finish potentially if the caution flag waves.
So Davis is into the box, and that will officially put a bow tie on all of this, and it will cycle back to the race lead. Liam Sheen, the 78 car, has officially secured the most laps led on the night. Nobody will match him. Remember, he got the leader share of the bonus points at the midway point, and now all that's left for the 78 is to close out a max points night for the first time in RSR history. Could be the first driver to score 52 in a single night. Now, obviously the win, the bigger story there, that golden ticket to the playoff grid, but it would be impressive for the first driver to rack up that number. The people standing in his way have been faster than him the last few laps. Sheen just put down a 38.67, but it was a 7.20 for Brandon Gass, and he is closing the gap between first and second. Thomas George not far out either, watching from third.
There's one thing catching Liam Sheen. There's another of passing him, and that was what we saw with the 6 getting to the back bumper of the 78. George could get there. He could make a run. He formulated it off the exit of 2. We thought he'd get him down the back straightaway and going into 3, but just was able to be a little bit more aggressive. The side draft, the hanging on the door to take some of that air off of him and make him react to you, not you react to him. Can the 78 hold the 20 off? A 1 lap difference of the tires. Is that going to make a huge gain for the 20 of gas? Or is Sheen's aggressiveness, his aggressive nature that he's shown in this race thus far, is that going to be what gets him this win? They got 15 and a half laps to prove it, and 0.3 of a second separate your top 2.
And what we saw earlier tonight was when the battle for the race lead commenced, that's where P3 was able to join the party. Now, in that battle, it was Sheen and George fighting for the lead, and it allowed Brandon Gass to close the gap, get in on the battle. Will this be a bit of a role reversal? George, not the fastest car in the top 3 right now, losing time per lap. But if Sheen and Gass start to fight it out, do not be surprised if the 6 car can storm onto the scene, because Brandon Gass is there. 14 laps, going to be a heck of a long time for Liam Sheen to try to hold off this 20 car.
Yeah, and you saw the 78 get a little bit loose down there on the bottom. He can't hold it like the 20 can. He'll wrap that white line. He'll get a great run off the exit of 2. Kind of had to check up there just a little bit so he wouldn't get to the back bumper of that 78, but down the back straightaway they go into turns 3. Liam's going to try to pull all of the air and give him dirty air off the exit of the corner, but that bobble there off the exit of 4, that'll set up the run for the race lead.
Looking to the outside. Remember, the outside was the defensive lane. Gass tried to sneak topside on Sheen, couldn't get there, but it forced the 78 car to be a little bit uncomfortable on his entry to the corner. Here comes the 20, bit of a run down the Nellis straightaway. Nothing cooking yet, though. Sheen goes middle, late to shut the door on the 20. You're looking off of the back. Your race leader is, here we go. Gass to the inside of Sheen, side by side for the race lead. They touch into turn 1.
Yeah, he pinched him all the way down, tried to hold him on the apron so he couldn't have a run into 1 and 2. Talked about aggressiveness. That was really aggressive, but for a race win, throw caution to the wind. And oh yeah, you mentioned our 3rd place driver. He was a 2.5 seconds back. Now make it under a second as they still fight for the lead. Be 11 laps to go as the 78 gets loose on the bottom. Big run from the 20.
Big run from the 20, looking down to the inside of the racetrack. Not going to happen that time. Sheen again, leader at the start-finish line. George closes in. He's gained about 0.4 the last 2 times around because these top 2 have started fighting. There is no traffic for about a lap and change ahead of these leaders. They've got almost the full track to play with before any other cars are a factor in this battle. George from 3rd watches on, and a big mistake there. Sheen gets sideways into the wall. They touch now. Contact in the battle for the race lead, and George is going to close in quick now as they keep going.
It's like 2 pissed off bulls going at one another. One makes contact with another. The other one comes down and beats the mess out of that one. And now 0.4 of a second for Thomas George. He's closing quick. Sheen blocking with everything in his power to keep that 20 behind him. Does that open this door? Does that give the 6 the window to take this race win? It's a 3-car battle for the race lead as the replay's in the top box.
There's a second look. It looked like from that angle they touched, but I promise it was Sheen loose on his own. Then they touched again there. Remember, it was a mistake from Sheen prior to the pit cycle that got Brandon Gass back up towards the front of the field, and it was a mistake there that nearly cost him again. Here we go once more. Gass to the inside. Sheen pinching down. The 20 pushes up a high-speed game of chicken at 170 miles an hour. They stay in it, and now this also get interesting because Dominic Howell lapped car on better tires in the black 07 car, trying to tiptoe around this battle for the lead. But as they go side by side, there's nowhere for him to go.
Yeah, if I was the 07, I'm backing out of this one. Just leave the fight or hurry up and get by them. Don't interrupt the race win here. You had your chance. You had your wreck. Let them fight it out. That lets the 6. He gets a shot from Bradley Burke, and now to the inside, side drafting, trying to use the 07 as a drafting source of sorts, is going to allow the 20 to slide up and take the race lead here.
Takes it away, and this could be a problem now for the 78 of Sheen because he falls back to second, and Bradley Burke made a topside move on Thomas George to steal the thunder. Now Burke next man up as he watches on, now going to the outside of the 78 of Liam Sheen. Here comes Bradley Burke, 4th to 2nd, now going for the lead to the inside of the 20. Can Burke lead his first lap of the night as he's got the lead in turn 2?
Interesting note, he has 2 laps fresher tires than the top 4. So fresher tires were the advantages. The 20 is going to look to the inside here. They'll come to see 5 laps to go from Barney the flagman and Bradley Burke, for Grandpa Burke's son, taking the race lead.
He's got it with 6 laps to go. Can Gas, Sheen, or George do anything to respond? Or to your point, was that delayed pit service by Bradley Burke 3 laps later than Sheen and George, 2 laps later than Gas? Is that little bit of extra bite that he's got in his Goodyear Eagles going to be enough for Bradley Burke, I think, to certifiably steal this race win in Vegas? 4 laps to go this time by. The gap only growing for the leader, maybe benefiting slightly from a draft off of the 07 in front of him.
Well, he's almost a 10th and a half faster than our second place driver. He's 4 tenths faster than Sheen and Thomas George, so not too shabby for the driver of the 19, the Get Wet Chevrolet. We'll see 3 to go, and you got to admit, Dominic Howell has been the savior for the 19 as he's getting the tow. Half a second separates the top 2.
They need to get around to the white flag for this race to be official. Not quite to that point yet. Burke losing more and more time as he is pulling away from Brandon Gass. It's now more than a half a second in his benefit. Going to be 2 laps to go this time by. The only battle right now, top 5, is the one for 3rd as Kyle Trudell makes a move on the 78 of Liam Sheen. Both Sheen and George slipping in the final moments.
Yeah, and I mean, the story at this moment, outside of this battle, Trudell has a 2-lap fresher tire advantage than Sheen and George together. So we'll see if he's able to hold on to that second place position. But coming out for the penultimate time for Bradley Burke, he'll see the white flag this time by. What a race at Las Vegas for the 19.
The white flag is in the air, and this race is official. This is not a battle for position. It is a lap car on the 07 ahead of the white number 19 of Bradley Burke, who's your race leader. He started this race at 8th, and about, 40 laps ago, he was still in 8th position, but decided to pit a little bit later on the final and only cycle the green flag pit stops, and he's going to blitz the leaders and lead the final 6. Final time off of turn 4, checkered flag for Bradley Burke, who steals the win in Las Vegas.
Yeah, what an absolute incredible drive for the 19 of Bradley Burke. We thought majority of this race, Liam Sheen was the driver to beat. Late race mistakes, a couple late race battles there with the 20 cost him, but what an incredible win for Burke, getting it done at Las Vegas. And if you weren't entertained with this one, I don't know what would make your heart jump.
Messy at times in the opening half, but always delivers by the time we get to the main event. And Bradley Burke will celebrate on the front straightaway as a winner again in the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series. And it is a bit of a different look on the Get Wet Sports Chevrolet. Touched on it earlier. He did a number change a couple of weeks ago to the number 19. Recently lost his grandfather, and when his grandfather played baseball, was always the number 19. He has changed his number to that and is dedicating this season to the memory of him. And look at his teammates joining in on the celebration. It means a lot for Burke. It means a lot for his teammates, and they like seeing a good guy get another one. And for all the drama and how much we broke that one down, Terry, coming to the end, you could have asked me with 40 to go or 10 to go. Could not have told you it was going to be Bradley Burke getting it done in the end. He did a great job of executing better than everybody else on that final 30-lap run.
Yeah, we'll take a look at our finishing results here unofficially with Burke getting it done. And yeah, we did not know who was going to win this race. The strategy was kind of up in the air. Gas coming home second after a good run through the field. Kyle Trudell coming home third. We'll talk to all three of those finishers at the end of this. Matt Danton, Mr. Where Did He Come From? Started in the back, went a lap down. He comes home in fourth. George getting a good run. Sheen, stage winner in sixth. Jaron Winemaster, having a good run as well. Phillip, he was nowhere all race long. Look at Maverick Davis, pitted late. Prove me wrong. He's ninth, and then Joseph Tice with an early, a strong qualifying run, and then also a strong finish.
Yeah, it probably could have been a little bit better for Davis if he didn't stay out and commit to the strategy, but a top 10 and the gamble, not too bad. Andrew Frunosh just misses out on the top 10. He comes home in 11th place tonight. You got to go all the way down to Grant Davis in P16 to find the next car who led laps in this race. He's ahead of the likes of Papanow, Coop, Cato, and Major, your top 20.
We go back there to round out our field here. Dylan Coyle, Steve Sawa, DeAndre Kane is back there in 23rd. Garrett Pittman in 24th. Mike Maddox, who had that strategy play as well, 25th. Cody Harris involved in an incident with Sam Nieto. Dominic Howe, Brett Larson, Tom Murado, your top 30. Your final two runners here this evening. We'll scroll across your screen. Should have been Chris Treppa and James Ross, 105 laps down.
And that's a look top to bottom at all of them at your full race results tonight from Las Vegas. Bradley Burke, the driver who gets the race win, and we're going to drag him in first and get a word with tonight's race winner down in Las Vegas Motor Speedway Victory Lane with Bradley Burke, your race winner tonight in the Las Vegas 200. Bradley, congratulations.
Thank you. I feel like it's been a long time coming. I've had a couple close calls in this league, but this league is so hard to win in. I could not be happier.
Tell us about this one, because much of our last 50 laps of the race was talking about Sheen and Gas and George. And admittedly, you had been up there in the top 10 up until that final pit stop and really all night long. But after the cycle, you're kind of fourth or fifth in line thinking, all right, maybe if things get scrappy, and they did, it would open up the door for you. But you didn't just simply take advantage of the battle up front. You got to them and then left them.
Yeah, after the pit stops, we kind of were getting deeper in the run, and I noticed I wasn't gaining any time with the line that I was running, and it kind of seemed like everybody else was in the same line as me. So I kind of moved my line up about a full lane in 3 and 4, and that's just when I noticed all the time was going down. And I just stuck with that lane to the end of the race, and it paid off.
Tonight, start number 99 in this Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series. You get the number 1 spot. We saw your teammates and friends come to congratulate you on the front straightaway. What does it mean to get that breakthrough moment after, to your point, having so many successful runs to this point?
Yeah, it feels really good, especially with the caliber of people that are in this league. Like I said, it's really hard to win in, but this one means a lot because I actually just switched my number to 19. It was my grandpa's number, and we were super close, and he just passed away 2 weeks ago, so that's why I did the number swap. So to get in victory lane with it 2 weeks later is pretty crazy.
We'll call it lucky number 19 tonight in Vegas. Bradley, we'll let you get out of here and get to celebrating. Before we do, though, for those 98 starts and then the one here tonight as well, for that journey to RSR Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series victory lane. Who makes it happen for you? Who do you want to say hi to?
Definitely got to say hi to and thank you to my teammates. I've been with them for many years now, and they're just a really good, solid group. We have a lot of fun. So Flat Out Esports, got to say thanks to them. Got to say thanks to Get Wet Sports for coming on for another season with me, and excited we could get them in victory lane.
We appreciate having you in this series. We always enjoy seeing them on the car, Bradley. Thank you for being a part of this. Congratulations on the well-deserved win, and we'll see you hopefully next time out as we go racing again next week.
Yep, appreciate you guys.
It's a race winner tonight from the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. It just goes to show, Terry, you got to double check your stats. Thought certainly there's no way, right, that it hasn't happened for Bradley Burke because he's such a successful driver. 37 top 10 finishes coming into tonight. Race win number 1 on the Cup side. Truly impressive and a great storyline to follow up the win from a Nazi major just a week ago. Continuing with those good stories, though, was Brandon Gass, who came home in second place tonight. We will wait to see if we can get a word with him post-race. In the meantime, actually, no, it looks like we do have him now, Terry, available down. So I'll hand off to you with the driver of the 20.
Yeah, we'll grab Brandon Gas and move him up here. Brandon, incredible fight there between you and Liam Sheen. Any foul words said over the radio of you two bouncing off of one another?
Nah, he said it was just hard racing after the race. I didn't know what happened during the moment. Me and my spotter were trying to figure out what was happening. I was like, I kind of got right hooked on a straightaway. I had no idea what happened, but me and Liam talked about it after the race. We're good.
That's good. That's good. Just making sure there was no drama heading into the next race. You obviously, when you got passed by Bradley Burke there, did tires really mean that much? It was only a 2-lap difference between when you came down the pit lane and he came down the pit lane. What happened to your car after he got around you? Was it just getting too tight? Could you not pick up the throttle off the exit?
As soon as he got around me for first, I went into 3 and the car just wouldn't turn at all. At that point, I knew my right front was gone and that he had better tires. I wasn't aware of when he pitted. It's crazy that it was only 2 laps. And I knew I had a lap fresher tires than what Liam had. But yeah, I had no right front anymore after that.
Well, so for your first mile and a half with this series, what are you going to take away for the rest of the season, knowing that a majority of it is places like Las Vegas that leads into the playoffs?
I love mile and a halves. I love 2-mile tracks. I need to work on short tracks and road courses for the remaining schedule, but mile and a half, 2 miles, I think will be good.
Well, we look forward to talking to you in Victory Lane at some point in time this season. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when for the 20. That's Brandon Gass coming home P number 2, Evan, and I believe we're about to get Kyle Trudell.
Yeah, let's toss you a bone and get you the driver who comes home in third tonight. We've got Kyle on the radio.
Well, the driver with my favorite glove company, Martin Sports, on the hood. Kyle, you had a kind of up and down evening, finished in third, but throughout the race, you had to overcome some challenges, got caught in some traffic, and then got back up there to the front. How did you cap off with that third place finish?
Yeah, you said it, man. Without the Martin Sports glove, none of this would be possible. That and XPM. But it was eventful there, as I'm sure everybody saw in the beginning of the race. And yeah, managing traffic is so important. Just trying to save tires while passing people and working a little bit of the air here and there, and just making sure the car is planted for as long as possible was the goal, and then I'm super glad it went green there to finish as long as it did. I feel like I just needed maybe 10 more laps on the top there on the wall, and maybe I could have got there.
Well, and that was my follow-up question is, what did you learn on the wall? Not a lot of people went and kind of rim rided, as they would say, around the racetrack. You saw a lot of middle groove drivers and bottom feeders. But to see a driver in the last 10 or so laps go up there to the outside lane, what can you learn from that takes you into the mile and a half portion of the season that could potentially get you in more top 3 finishes, maybe even a win?
Well, I love being up there. It just wasn't working all race. It seems like it kicks in maybe the latter part of a tire run, which is ultimately kind of what you want, And I honestly, in NIS last night, it really worked for me to get by a few people in key moments. And so I knew I could have maybe that in the bag when I really needed it, as long as there was tire fall off.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing you for the rest of the season. Congrats on that P3, and you celebrate with a nice Martin Sports shout out.
Well, absolutely, and we can get to the racetrack with Huff Trucking, and thank the XPM and all the teammates. Darren and I worked pretty well together, just being organized all race, and I think hopefully we can look forward to a lot more of that. Unfortunately, I can't make every week, but that just makes every other week the goal is to win the race, and that's it.
That's what we like to hear, Kyle. We'll see you down the road, and can't wait to talk to you some more.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you for broadcasting and putting on a good event.
Oh, you're welcome. We're here for you, Kyle. That's Kyle Trudell coming home P number 3 this afternoon, Evan. And what an exciting Las Vegas round this was.
It started a little bit interesting, right? All of these drivers may be a bit nervous and not the biggest of fans of what the current, mile and a half package is on the service, but you get the green flag run, and that's where the magic happens. Some strategy, some 2-3 wide for the win, and it is all capped off with a second straight week of a first-time RSR Cup Series race winner. It's hard to ask for more than that, and we'll give you more when we do it all again next week. Was supposed to be an off week before this one. Instead, they've got to go right into it as we head to the high banks on the asphalt, by the way. First time in the spring it's been on the asphalt in quite some time. To the last great Coliseum, we head to Bristol Motor Speedway next Monday.
Well, and I'll tell you, going back to the home track, can't wait to hit the concrete once again. No dirt needed to put on a good race at that world's fastest Coliseum. And by the way, just a nice little correction here. I'm 2 for 2 in either predicting a caution or telling them that the caution won't come out. We'll see if we go 3 for 3 next week at 8:30 on March 11th.
You can catch Nostra Terry, myself, Evan, our producer, Joshua Lee, everybody else, the whole crew, when we're back at it again in 1 week's time. But until then, though, that'll do it for us here tonight from the entertainment capital of the world. On behalf of our entire team at RealSimRacing, RaceSpotTV, and your broadcast team tonight, for Joshua Lee, Terry Radford, and myself, Evan Pasoko, I want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Bradley Burke, who gets his first career Cup Series win in start number 99. We're back in 1 week's time. That is Monday, March the 11th at iRacing's virtual Bristol Motor Speedway. That race and every race of the 2024 Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series can be found exclusively here on RaceSpotTV. Till next time, good night from Las Vegas.